Put on your hard hat and buckle up that tool belt. It's time for some heavy-duty conversation about all things Tampa Bay. Welcome to Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast, Season 2. I'm Tommy Whitehead, the CEO and founder of TomCo Solutions, where we're not just construction and financial experts, but passionate advocates for our thriving community here in Tampa, Florida. As a construction pro and proud Tampa Bay resident, I'm excited to shine a spotlight on our region. Whether you're a longtime resident or considering a move to Tampa Bay, get ready to uncover some hidden gems and fascinating insights about our beloved hometown. Sitting with me at the drafting table today is Brad Owens, business consultant at the Florida Small Business Development Center at the University of South Florida, specializing in capital access. With extensive experience of more than 30 years in the banking industry, Brad provides business owners with no-cost confidential business consulting. We discuss some amazing advice for small business owners, whether you are just starting out or looking to expand. This especially applies to our listeners in the growing Tampa Bay region. Welcome, Brad. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Tommy. I'm doing great.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. One, go Bulls. I'm alma mater. I know you're on the campus, a little separate from the campus, but still, anytime I see the Bulls, I gotta call them out.
Absolutely, go Bulls.
Go Bulls. So, Brad, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, where are you originally from?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I was born in North Carolina. I grew up in South Carolina, very small town, Clinton, South Carolina, less than 10,000 people. And I actually started my working career very early and there in that town, and it led me to where I'm at today. And I lost my dad very young when I was 9 years old, and that was part of why I started working so young at the age of 12, and I was the youngest of 4 kids. And so I kind of got my entrepreneurial spirit going at an early age, and I went out and I got a job meeting the pet milkman. Rode my bike, which, by the way, I built with my own hands because I didn't have money to go buy a bike. And I literally would ride my bike to the 2 grocery stores in the town, meet the pet milkman, help him unload the milk, and then I would ride back during the day and move it forward and bring it from the rear of the store and restock. So it would stay where it needed to be during the day, and he wouldn't have to come back to that town because he drove from 45 minutes away to get there. And then I expanded, and I got the bread man and the cheese guy. I had a little entrepreneurial thing going, and I was 12 years old, literally. And when I went for my first real job and applied, I actually put those on the application and said, yeah, I worked for Pet Milk at age 12, and it was like, they were like, you got to be kidding me. But it was just kind of what I did and who I was.
That's incredible. You saw a need and saw that opportunity and decided, hey, I'm going to solve it. And that's something that a lot of kids don't have, especially that early. Mm-hmm. Some people, they wait until midlife before they figure out that, oh, there's a need and let me solve that. So that's pretty awesome. So you've always been an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form.
I have. I'm a business owner today, and I've owned several different businesses that I've worked in, and it literally goes all the way back to age 12.
I love that. I actually have a chapter in my book about that, starting out about bathtub lemonade, and you guys can read about that in my book. But it was an early childhood venture. Unfortunately, it failed horribly, as it might sound. It wasn't as successful as your venture, but I appreciate other fellow young starters. So that's great. Tell us a little bit about your banking experience. Like, what opened up your eyes to consulting instead of being in the banking industry?
Well, the banking industry was a great career. I spent 30 years in it. I loved it, and I owe a lot to it. I really do. I got in it because my father was actually the best man in the wedding of a gentleman that was an alumni of the school I graduated from, and obviously family friend. And he had moved to Miami and was president of a bank down there. And when about 6 months after I graduated from college, he offered me a chance to go into a management training program in the banking industry in Miami. And I moved from South Carolina to Fort Lauderdale and commuted from Fort Lauderdale to Miami every day and thought I had lost my mind. But that's how I got started in banking. And I ended up here in Tampa, again in banking the whole time. And as a banker, a commercial lender, I should say, not a banker. Banks are full of bankers. There's only a handful of commercial lenders in each bank. a real handful compared to the number of people that work in a bank. And to be one of those folks, you've got to network. You can't sit in the office and wait on a qualified borrower to come in the door because you'll end up getting fired. You'll never meet your loan goal. You have to go out and you have to find the business. And so I networked all the time. And one of the people that I met networking was Janina Rosario, who's our associate director today. At the time, she worked for, it's now Prosperous. It was HBIF, the Hispanic Business Initiative Fund, when I first met her. She ended up working with SBDC. And I networked a lot with HBIF. I also then started networking with SBDC when she came here. I was actually elected to, at the time, they had a Lenders Hall of Fame, and I was one of the people that they put in there because when I ran Bank of America's SBA division, we did a lot of business together at the time. They were doing small express loans, and we did a ton of them together. And so they gave me that honor, which was cool, you know. And years later, I finished with banking, kind of retired out of that, and started running my own business full time. I was going to do that. And about 6 months later, the SBDC called and said, you know, I think we could use your background as a lender if you're interested. And I had known them for a long time. I had been interested in working for them. The timing was never right, but it was right at that time. And I came on board. That was 7 years ago. I'm in my 7th year, which is amazing. It's gone by so fast. And we've changed a lot, but we still do the exact same thing. We offer the no-cost consulting to either business owners or people who want to become a business owner. And that's what I've done my whole career.
Incredible. There's a lot to digest there. First of all, the culture shock from moving from South Carolina to Fort Lauderdale and traveling to Miami had to have been drastic.
There were many times I was on I-95 headed south towards Miami, that I wanted to head north and just
go back
going.
home.
Yeah, but I stuck in there. You know, I hung in there and ended up with a great career out of it.
That's wonderful. And congratulations, you're the first Hall of Famer of anything I've had on this show. I didn't know that was a criteria you brought to the table, so that's amazing. I'm lucky I got you today, so thank you for that.
We're going to talk about another Hall of Fame too.
Okay, all right. So so that led you through your banking career, through your entrepreneurial career, that led you eventually to the SBDC. Glad you brought up networking. That's a central point in almost every episode I have, because nobody that I've interviewed across from this table on the other side has accomplished what they've done without networking. Mm-hmm. And so we always, like you said, we picture bankers sitting there and dispensing cash and helping with deposits, and that wasn't what you did at all. No,
not at all.
You were there. You were the minority there helping small businesses, large businesses, any businesses, but you had to get out there and meet them first.
I had to go to the chamber meetings. I had to go to the BNI meetings. I had to make calls on businesses, introduce myself. I had to get out there and find the business. If I sat at my office, and waited on it to come to me, I would have been fired.
Yeah, and almost every business is like that. They're like, I opened my doors. Why aren't people coming? You can't. They're not just build it and they will come. That doesn't happen.
No.
You have to go out and get it. So I love that you touched on that. Can we dive a little bit deeper into your current position at the Florida SBDC at USF? It's a lot. I mean, you guys do a lot there. Yeah. And I'd love to hear a little bit more, specifically about what you do and maybe what some of your team members do.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we offer the no-cost consulting, and the way that works is we're funded by the Small Business Administration, which is part of the federal government, and we get matching funds. In our case, it's through the state, through USF, and we're actually USF, Muma College of Business employees.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. And so that funding comes together for us to offer the no-cost consulting in the 10 counties around the Tampa Bay area. And what we do is we try to help businesses reach milestones that are the businesses in those 10 counties. And those milestones can be starting a business. It can be, and I work probably 60 to 70% of my time with existing businesses that have been around 3 years or more. But it could be starting a business. It could be actually forming the entity. It can be obtaining financing through a loan, through equity injection, through angel investors or venture capitalists, anything that helps grow the economy. So hiring employees, growing revenue, all of those things, all of those milestones that businesses can reach that grow the economy are what we're trying to reach. And if we help businesses reach that, then it makes the funding that's been put into us make sense because the economy has grown from it.
It's justification. And
the only thing we ask in exchange is that they sign an attribution form. It's a very simple one-page form, and it just is. If it was a loan, it's an SBA loan, this dollar amount this month, and signature and date. It's that simple. That way we put in our files proof that we're doing what we say we're doing.
Wonderful. So not a lot of people know about you. I mean, you're backed by the federal government, you're backed by the state of Florida, you're backed by USF, and people are like, who?
And all of that, we can be the best kept secret in town, unfortunately.
Absolutely. So I'll tell my listeners, because Brad can't disclose this until I open the bottle, but I am a client of Brad's. I am a client of the USF Small Business Development Center, and I was introduced through networking. Somebody said, hey, I want you to call Brad. His advice is so sound that I've never seen a loan package come from him that wasn't eventually approved if you met all the criteria he put you through. And so I knew of USF's Small Business Development Center. I never really thought, was it that useful? And so I went to see Brad and talk to him. And we immediately hit it off because I have a background in finance and accounting. So most of his time on conference calls is explaining a spreadsheet, and that was like 5 minutes of our time. We spent a lot more time talking about business planning and what people are looking at. And my personal experience was just outstanding. It was an extremely large amount of work. You made it easier, but you didn't hold the punches. You're not there to pump me up and make me feel good about myself, and I appreciated that. I'm a direct person. Brad and his team said, you know what, Tommy? We don't say we like your business. We don't say we don't like your business. We say this is what a lender's looking at and what they have to see. That was it. It was almost emotionless in that you were saying, here's the criteria. Can you meet them? And if I couldn't meet a criteria, you were saying, here's alternative criteria that you might be able to do, you might be able to meet. And so Brad's team, and I just can't give them a big enough glowing testimonial. After I went through Brad's process and worked through my 20, 30, 40-page business plan, took it to some lenders, and a couple of lenders saying, we don't lend to contractors. In our space, if you say the word contractor, they all think we're speculative, meaning we're building something on the off chance somebody's going to buy it. And banks don't like that. Unless you're one of the billion-dollar builders, then they'll deal with you. I don't do that. I'm not a speculative building. I do renovations, repairs, new builds with a client. And so when I got my business plan together, when I got this through, I literally got that from so many banks. And then one bank says, Tommy, we don't lend to contractors. However, you're not your typical contractor. And I attribute that to the way you helped me with my business plan, not just with the finances. Again, I had that kind of figured out. You gave me some pointers, but we had that relatively figured out. But literally the depth of your business plan needs to answer these questions. Why are you different? How are you different? All the way up to put pictures in the business plan. I never thought for a minute a banker would care about pictures. And immediately the first thing they see is a picture of me with elected officials right on the cover. And it got their attention. They're like, what is he doing? Then instead of just skimming through 1 or 2 pages, they thoroughly read through 22, 32, 42 pages. And it made a drastic difference. And with his guidance and working through the process, I was able to close a decent SBA loan. And I really appreciate you, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank your team for that. And I want to let people know that I was told it will not happen at least 4 times. We can't do it. It won't happen. Stop bothering us. And I explained to them, I don't take no for an answer, so how are we going to make this work? And it was a pretty cool process. So Brad, personally, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You were great. We're sitting in this room today in large part because of your consultation and your help.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed working with you. You were a great client to work with and are a great client to work with. You took to heart the things that I told you. You know, these are the hurdles that you have to overcome in order to qualify for a loan. If you don't overcome them, it will be a deal killer. If you do, then it allows you to move through the rest of the process. And if you get through the whole process, then you eventually get to funding at the end. But it is a process, and the hurdles are pretty well known. you just have to work through them, and you had the entrepreneurial spirit and drive to do that and work through it, and I think that's awesome.
And thank you. And I think one of the point being is believing in yourself is not enough. You can't believe that your idea is good enough. Mm-hmm. You can't just show a little bit of data and it's good enough. You have to prove it. You have to show that a banker is going to lend you money. You prove to them, hey, I can do this, and this is because. And when you took the emotion out of it, that made all the difference, because you weren't like, Tommy, it's not that I don't believe that you're doing it. Personally, I think you will succeed doing this, but I'm not lending you the money. Mm-hmm. I'm only here to advise you. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. The SBDC, the SBA rarely lends money directly, and that's usually only in the case of disasters. The SBA only guarantees a loan, but you have to still meet the credit criteria of the bank.
Correct.
And banks aren't easy.
Well, they're in the business of risk management. They're not in the business of taking a lot of risk. On the typical project, they ask you to put 10% down. They're going to lend 90%. Who's taking the risk? They got 90% of it. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to, and you know, whatever rate of interest they're charging you, they got to take all their cost out of that. They work on a really thin margin. They're not there to take high risk. They're not supposed to. They're regulated. They're lending our money. Mm-hmm. They're our deposits. If they make bad loans, it's our money that's being lost. They're regulated to not do that, and they're backed by the government to not do that.
So it's ultimately taxpayer money that's lost, and so they're just trying to defend taxpayer money.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, they're private business, but the FDIC would back them if they fail. And so the FDIC regulates them to prevent them from failing and makes them keep their capital levels very high and makes them really careful about what loans they do make. And it's a very competitive process. If they set up a loan program and have qualifiers for it and have a certain amount of money that they want to lend, then they're going to take in the best risk that they can. They're going to compare one to the other. You're going to have to compete with other borrowers. If there's another borrower that's more attractive to you, they're going to spend their time working on that one. They don't have to spend time on your loan application and try to make it better. That's not what they're there. That's your job to do. And you did it. But some people don't understand the process that way. And that is how it works. You have to be very competitive, and you have to really assert yourself, but you can't make it up. You have to be very realistic, and you have to prove what you're saying.
And Brad, can you remind our listeners one more time how much you charge me for this?
It's no cost.
No cost. And does all my business and financials and all the emails I sent, does that all go to the government so that they can all look over it?
No, it's all kept confidential at the SBDC at USF. We do use Salesforce, which is what we put all of our sessions in. And I've had since meeting with you and our last consulting session, we have now moved to the Teams Premium platform, which includes an AI meeting notes now. And it's wonderful. So when I finish a meeting, what we do is we transcribe the meeting, and then the AI will kick in and give meeting notes that I can provide as a follow-up email and to document the session with the client. And that helps because it gets more detail than I can possibly write myself in there. And I've got a lot of colleagues that have different backgrounds at the SBDC at USF. Marketing, website, SEO, government contracting, state, local, federal, certifications for contracting, et cetera. There's a lot of different backgrounds. And so if I've shared if I've met with you and I'm telling you, you should meet with our marketing person and get them to work with you on your marketing, your advertising spend and how you're spending it and the results you're getting from it. Well, that's Scott Carpenter. For you to meet with Scott, he's going to go into the Salesforce system and look at the session notes of meetings that we've had and get to know about your business and what we've worked on. That way, when you have a meeting with him, it's going to be a more efficient use of your time.
And I think one of the most impressive things that a lot of people don't realize is when you go to the DMV, it's a government program, right? The DMV is probably somebody that works for the DMV. That was their career. When I go to the Small Business Development Center, I'm talking to somebody like you. This isn't your first career. You had 30 years in the banking industry. Your job was to try to get those loans through if you could, because that's, I'm sure, how you made your salary or made your goals.
Absolutely.
So you had every desire to pass a loan if you could. Mm-hmm. But I came to you, and what was most impressive is I was talking to somebody that has the exact same mindset of the next person that's actually going to lend me money. And your other colleagues are like that too, aren't they? There are people with accounting backgrounds and marketing backgrounds and government contracting experience. And most of them probably worked in the private sector doing mm-hmm. that before they became consultants. So you sat in my seat as an entrepreneur to know what's going on. And that's not just somebody that's career government. That's somebody that has real life experience that can help us. Mm-hmm. And again, all free.
All no cost. And yeah, absolutely. You described it well. There are people who, some of them had jobs in industry. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. Our other consultants have had their own businesses and been there and done that. They've been in that chair. They've worn the hat. They understand it. But they'll have an area of specialization that they were hired to really consult in, not just as a generalist usually. And a person can a business owner or entrepreneur can go from one consultant to the other depending on what their needs are. Like, you're not just my client. I want you to meet with all the consultants you can if they're helping you grow your business and help your business reach those milestones that I was talking about.
Yeah, and that I had that direct experience. You actually gave me an outline for a marketing plan, and you reviewed it, and you said, if I need to, and I remember this in the conversation, if I need to, I'll send you to our marketing consultant. Mm-hmm. But I managed to get what you thought I needed out without having to go. So a lot of you have the generalist experience, but you have your focus. And so if I go to the marketing person and they need to give me a little finance advice, if it's simple, they probably will do it. And if it's more complex, hey, I need a $10 million loan with all these criteria for import-export, they're going to send me over to you.
They're either going to send you over to me and I'll meet with you one-on-one, or they're going to co-consult and set up a meeting for the three of us to meet. And maybe they want to learn more about it and hear the conversation firsthand, what have you. So, yes.
That's incredible. I mean, I knew the service was there. I didn't know how impressive it was and how dedicated it was. And like you said, it is the best kept secret. I've given you guys so many referrals, and every time I get a call back saying, oh my God, he was great.
You've been a great referral source, and I appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, so moving along, you were in South Carolina, you were in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, and then you made it to beautiful Tampa Bay. What's your favorite part about living and working here in Tampa Bay?
The climate, I love. Our backyard lake, I love. When my wife Ada and I go out around town, and we live up in Lutz and Land O'Lakes now, she's a VPK teacher, and so she's been saving the world a couple dozen kids at a time for years and years and years. Since our youngest was 3, and she started as an assistant in the classes. And every time we go out, we go to Publix, we go out to eat, whatever it is, there will be some family member that will recognize her and come over and say hello. It's so cool, to live in a community like that and be part of it. That's really cool.
I love that. That community is a central point I hear from everybody that's moved here. This is, they feel that Tampa has a specific sense of community that they haven't felt before in other cities and states and towns. And it's always good to hear about our community like that. I'm actually a native Floridian, and I've been in Tampa Bay for more than half my life. So I was just one county over before that. So this has been my region, and I've seen how it's developed and how welcoming it is. So Brad, tell us what drives you. Like, what's your favorite part of the day? What gets you out of bed in the morning other than your wife kicking you out?
I like helping people. And in my job, my career, I've been able to do that. I haven't always been able to get the deal approved and get it funded. I haven't always been able to help each person. Obviously, nobody can, but I've helped a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And it's really fun to do that. It's rewarding. And to work for an organization that's aligned with that and that I agree with, and it just really feels good. I enjoyed it.
I love that. So on this podcast, we love to talk about how Tampa Bay is rapidly growing. I mean, keep seeing the developments. It seems like there's news all the time. from the Ybor Harbor and Derek Shaw doing this to all the stuff that Jeff Vennick's done. Even Bill Gates was involved at some point in some of the waterset developments. How have you seen all this growth affect small businesses and entrepreneurs here in the area?
It's interesting. We were in the Port Authority building for years, and I spent part of my time out of the campus, the USF Connect building, where we're all now located. While we were in the Port Authority, I saw a lot of those projects day to day coming up. Living up in Lutz and in now Land O'Lakes, when I moved here in '98, the Veterans Expressway had just been built, and it was like you rode up through there and you paid the tolls by hand, and there were very few cars on the road.
And for our younger listeners, there are things called toll booths, and people used to sit in them, and you used to pay with coins. Coins are the little stuff. You guys don't know what that is because you tap to pay. But sorry, go ahead.
And then, so we bought a house in Land O'Lakes, in Lutz, and off of Lutz Lake Fern Road, and there was one elementary school there. And then the Veterans Expressway was extended with the Suncoast Parkway going 3 counties north. And then State Road 54, that had been a 2-lane road from US 19 all the way to where 54 intersects with I-75, has now become a 6-lane road. I mean, it was a 2-lane road through just scrubland. There was nothing out there. And now it's a 25-mile-long road that they've now cut a new exit through called 56 to get to Interstate 75. There's probably 100 different businesses just there on that exit alone. The whole 25 miles of State Road 54 is lined with businesses and homes, new roofs. It's amazing, and how it has changed in that period of time and how much growth has occurred, and it continues. If you go north to State Road 52, you see the same thing now happening there. It's amazing to see the growth that has occurred here.
Yeah, I keep watching it, and like I said, I grew up here, and Florida was growing a little bit, but it was the 90s. It was kind of a recession, and then 2001 happened, and there was problems there, and then all of a sudden, Tampa just made drastic changes that just started. Now we're continuously on the top 10 lists of places to move. Mm-hmm. We have tech companies, and we have industrial companies, and we have more shipping coming in and out of our port. I mean, if you didn't work at the port, you worked at the port building, but I'm sure you saw that area just expand. Mm-hmm. It is incredible to see people coming here and what they've accomplished. So, Brad, can you give me a name of a person or maybe a business that's kind of thriving in Tampa Bay right now? We love to highlight those little hidden gems in the area.
Yeah, I have a client, was one of the first clients that I worked with when I started at the USF, Small Business Development Center at USF. And it's 2 sisters. Their business is called Sand Surf, and they sell swimwear, women and men swimwear and related products. And they're out of the West Shore Marina, and they're in the central retail area of West Shore Marina, which has been redeveloped, and they've done a great job redeveloping it. And Sand Surf has grown right along with the marina. The 2 sisters have, when I first met them, they had just graduated from the University of Tampa, and they've worked so hard. They started doing pop-up events, and from there they came into a retail location, and then they ended up at the marina. And recently they were nominated by me for the Florida Small Business Development Center at USF annual awards for Women-Owned Business of the Year. And they were chosen for that. They won that award, which I'm very, very proud of. And so that sets them up, hopefully, to be nominated for the SBA Women-Owned Business of the Year, which would be wonderful.
That's exciting. So you've taken pride in your own businesses. How does it feel to use your decades worth of experience and coach these people and to see them pop up on something like a whole regional award? And that's just got to be amazing to see your experience communicated to the next generation of entrepreneur.
It's fun. I love helping people. I really do. And trying to, and helping entrepreneurs and seeing them work hard in that entrepreneurial spirit and taking risk and going out there and making it happen. It's very rewarding.
Now, did you buy a cool swimsuit from them? You don't have to answer that. That's okay. So, Brad, can you share any upcoming initiatives, projects, events, other things that the Florida SBDC at USF is excited about?
Yeah, we're doing the USF Connect building that we work from is a pretty cool building. And what we're doing is we're doing an initiative, and we're primarily we've targeted the lenders as well as some of the chambers to start visiting us at USF Connect and have the experience, see the building. It's an incubator, so it's a laboratory. It's built out as laboratories, and you've got the professors, the PhDs who've come up with patented ideas, and they're working in the labs with teams to try to build those out to where they can be used in society. It's everything from cancer, cures for cancer, to just, it's not all medical related at all. It's a technology incubator is what it is. And it's just amazing some of the things that they're doing there. And in the atrium of the building, it houses the Florida Inventors Museum. And that's kind of a cool tour to take. One of the first flight, the machines that you get in to learn to fly a plane before you actually get in the plane to fly was invented in Florida, and it's sitting in the atrium there in USF Connect. The light bulb, Gatorade. There's just some really cool things that are part of that. One of my clients was inducted into the Florida Inventors Museum in 2016. Him and his wife are both PhDs at USF, and they recently invented a device that uses lights to kill 100% of the pathogens that go through the light, and it's used for HVAC systems, and it can go for residential, industrial, any of them. And they had a company out of New Jersey called Holtec that invested $50 million to buy half of their invention, 50% of their, and fund it to build out a manufacturing plant here in Tampa Bay and start developing that product. And we have been helping them with site selection and different things like that. So it's been really cool to be part of USF Connect and part of USF and involved in a tiny way in projects like that. It's really interesting. The walls are lined with hundreds of patents. Some of them I can't even read. But it's a very cool event. We've got a student innovation incubator as well. So students that want to, these days it's almost all develop an app, but they're going to build a business around an app. So you got the young entrepreneurs, and we help them as well. So it's a really cool place to be. And what we do is we invite people in to take those tours, the folks that I mentioned, so that they can become more familiar with us and us more familiar with them, the lenders, the chambers, et cetera. So that's been working. That's an initiative that has been working really well. And Janina and I have been the ones doing that because she is the person she's our associate director, and she's the person who runs the Business Circle of Excellence. And a lot of the banks are part of that. They help fund us as well because they want to be aligned with SBDC at USF because they know that we're working with entrepreneurs and existing businesses, and they are the ones that refer a lot of people to us who need the technical assistance we provide, so we can hopefully help them out and then send them back for loans or other services.
That's incredible, and I'm a bull myself. I went to the campus over 20 years ago, and most of those buildings on there weren't in existence then, nor were these programs. So we always hear about it being a leading medical research facility. We never hear about the leading technological research that's coming out of that. You always hear some of the other schools doing that, but a lot of that's happening in USF, and it sounds like it's another hidden gem that's there. And it's fascinating that you're now focused more on connecting with the private sector, getting them involved early on to help incubate these small businesses to become the $100 million manufacturing plant here in Tampa Bay. the investment cost in that's minimal compared to the return and the amount of economic progress and the jobs that creates. So, something you've touched has turned into this huge ordeal. That's just simply impressive. So Brad, let's say I'm someone who wants to start my own business. What are 3 general tips you might give someone who's just starting out? Maybe they're young out of college. Maybe they're midlife. Maybe they're 40, 50 years old and they're going down a different path. What do you think you tell these people that want to start something?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of the consulting meetings start with, tell me what you're doing, what's going on, what's happening, how can I help? And I just try to sit back and be quiet and let them tell me what's going on in their business and how I can, and learn a lot about their situation. And whether it's an existing business owner that's been in business for a long time and needing assistance to maybe get a loan to expand the business or to fix something that they know that they've grown despite that and had success despite something that's wrong. A lot of times the advice is the same, believe it or not. And it's or at least it's very, very similar. And the conversations and the advice that come from it. One of the things, and this probably applies obviously more to the startup type, new in business or wanting to get into business, but find a mentor. Find somebody you can talk to that will share the learning curve they went through and get you through it way faster and easier and less expensive than it was maybe for them. And they'll, people want, I firmly believe that people want to help others. Most of them do. If you just ask the right way and you're just nice about it, they'll usually help you. And I've had lots of clients say, I called and I talked to some of the others that I thought of as competitors, and they told me all kind of great stuff. Find a mentor, get them to help you. After that, usually you need to do a financial forecast. And, it shouldn't be something that is online and you don't know what inputs you're putting into it and it spits out a PDF that's 50 pages of beautiful charts and all that you don't understand know what the heck it's all about and think that it's going to work for anything. The tool that I use is a very simple Excel workbook. There's 3 different tabs that you really focus on in that to know what your costs are so that you can then start to project how many units you might sell and know how many of those units you need to make your gross profit on to cover your cost, a concept known as break even. Really important to know. And it's not that hard to understand when you get a little bit of help and understand it on your concept that you're wanting to build as a business. It becomes understandable then and relatable. And this tool is a one-size-fits-all, but it creates the outcome that's needed, which is a projected income statement for 12 months, and more importantly than that, a cash flow statement. And so once you've done that, and what my job is to provide you with the conversation up front and pull the information out of you, give you the tool and demonstrate how it works, and then get you to do a draft of it. Because it's your financial forecast, not mine. You need to be able to do it with some help. And then when you do a draft of it, you come back, we schedule a meeting for however many days you need for getting your draft done. And we meet again and we go through the same process. I look at the draft and I go through the 3 tabs, and we do that once or twice, and we usually have a financial forecast worked out. And in the course of doing that, we're talking about some of the requirements for lending that we mentioned earlier and all those things as part of this whole process. And then once you've gotten the financial forecast finished, it's a lot easier to write a business plan, because then all you're doing is telling your story, which is what you mentioned earlier. Use pictures. They say 1,000 words, and limit it to just telling your story. I see so many people that write a business plan and they think up this one basically paragraph that they think sounds really good. And they go to an outline of a business plan, and they've got things they can put in some of the sections, but other sections they may not apply or they don't know what to put in there. So they'll just cut and paste and put that paragraph in there that sounded good. And all of a sudden they've got that in 14 different places in their business plan. And it's like, don't do that. Just keep it very simple. Think sort of executive summary type business plan and tell your story. And you'll end up with the information that you need. And then if somebody needs you to expand on it, we can do that. We've got the marketing people and others that can help you do research and expand on it. But usually what I've described is enough to get the job done.
Those are all amazing tips. So we want to make sure we start with a concept, we have a financial plan, and then we tell our story. And that sounds very simple, but it's a very complex process. But take it one step at a time. Mm-hmm. Start a little bit at a time. And get mentors to help you.
Individual process. It's your specific financial forecast. It's your specific one. It's not, a standard for the industry or anything like that. It's what you want to do is what we're going to build a financial forecast around.
Yeah, because the swimsuit I sell might be different than the swimsuit they sell, right?
Exactly.
So you've already talked about a couple of really, really cool achievements, but can you share any other memorable moments or achievements from your time at the Florida Small Business Development Center that you're particularly proud of?
A trophy that I was awarded, and this is from September of 2020 during COVID. We had our regional awards. They were done virtually that year, and in the middle of the virtual meeting, the director and one other of my colleagues who was doing the filming and one other person who was there walked up and knocked on the door of my house. And I'm sitting here watching the virtual meeting, and I'm like, somebody's at the door. Wait a minute, that's my boss at the door. And then I realized I was winning the award for the Regional Performance Excellence of the Year Award. And what that is the Consultant of the Year.
Wow.
And during COVID, I probably helped with around $6 million or more of EIDL loans, which sounds like a big accomplishment. But what was, I think, the bigger accomplishment was working with hundreds and hundreds of business owners and having 30-minute conversations with them to answer their questions about EIDL and about what was going on and what was happening in their business. And there were some gut-wrenching conversations and some tears. I mean, it was a tough time, and I went through that with a lot of business owners, my own business as well, and I ended up with this award, and I thought that was pretty cool.
All of that's amazing, but the most incredible is that they coordinated the time to knock on your door just at the right time. And we got to think, this is 2020. This is Zoom wasn't as Teams and Zoom wasn't as heavily used at that point. It's really because of COVID, because of the 2020 issues we had developed. So they're coordinating all this stuff and knocking on your door. I'm sure you're masking up and trying to, who's at the door? I don't want anything from you. So that I can see you glowing, the sense of pride. That's amazing. Yeah. And that's obviously because of the good work you do for our community. And I've shared my story many times about I almost folded my business in 2020. I was doing quite well starting up, and then the pandemic hit, and it just was gone. It was gone, and it was like starting over again. And it wasn't starting over again from zero. It was starting over again from negative. Mm-hmm. So
and post-COVID, and with all the changes that had occurred.
Absolutely. So, congratulations to you for that. I didn't realize I was sitting in front of somebody so important. That's awesome. That's incredible. Now I feel special. So, Brad, do you believe networking and relationships are crucial part of getting to where you are today?
They are the absolute most important part. It's what I do all day long, literally. I network and I build relationships all day long, and that's become my career. It's I don't know that I knew I was doing that while I was doing it for 30 years as a banker. It's kind of like looking back at it, and I realized that that's what I was doing the whole time, and that's what I continue to do today, and that's what I enjoy doing. It's fun doing it, and I get up every day happy about doing it. I'm a lucky guy.
That's great. You don't have to be a know-it-all banker. I don't have to be a know-it-all contractor. But if we're good networkers, we can always find the information, tools, and resources we need to be better at our trades. So, Brad, this is kind of a funny section we like to call Ratcheted Up. What's the craziest story you've heard of in your industry or the construction industry, or maybe even just a funny joke you might have?
In 30 years of lending and 7 years of consulting, I've seen a lot, and there's been some funny stuff for sure. So early on in my lending career, I was working on this loan with a CPA. I think it was the Big 3 back at the time, or Big 8, something like that, accounting firms. And he was working for one of those, and his wife had a small accounting firm in this little house that had been turned into professional office space, and she wanted to buy that that house in order to move her little CPA practice out of her living room. And she didn't quite qualify. So I said, you don't quite qualify. Your practice is a little too small, but your husband has a lot of income. If he's willing to guarantee, that helps the household better, then the cash flow works, and we can do the deal. She said, sure, I'll go home, talk to him. That shouldn't be a problem. So she went home, and over dinner, she said, here's the paperwork for the bank loan. He said, and she started going through the questions, the SBA questions, and one of them, have you ever been arrested or charged or blah, blah, blah? And she said, checked no. And he said, honey, that's not quite right. He had served 3 years in the Texas penitentiary for trafficking marijuana.
Wow.
I guess it had never come up in conversation before. The question had never been asked. But he guaranteed the loan, they stayed together, and we made the loan to them. And as far as I know, she's still operating a very successful CPA practice. True story.
So for all those single people out there, you might want to grab the SBA loan questionnaire and ask your potential date or spouse to fill this out, not to sign for a guarantee, but just so you know a little bit of background about who you're going to shack up with for the rest of your life.
And I got one more for you.
Okay.
So I'm working with this borrower, and he gives me his personal tax returns, which I review, and I see there's like a $20,000 or so loss for gambling on there. And it's a couple of years in a row that we had asked for, and the losses were there each year. And I said, it looks like you lose about $20,000 a year out in Vegas. And he said, it's really easy to do that, Brad. All you got to do is take 40,000 out there. And that also is a true story. And he qualified for the loan because he could afford to lose $20,000 each year. And he actually got the loan. But that's a true story.
Well, if you can afford to lose it, it's his money to lose, right?
And there you go.
That's great. All right, Brad, lastly, because we're about to wrap up here, for our small business owners who are listening, how can they get in contact with you or the Florida Small Business Development Center at USF?
My email address is my last name, Owens, OWENSB, my first initial, Brad, at usf.edu. Email is really the best way. We have hold harm agreements and stuff like that are part of the registration process, and it all works through email and then going online to our website, sbdctampabay.com, and registering on there for consulting. If you were to want to meet with me, particularly when you do that registration process, you would need to say somewhere in one of the free forms, I want to meet with Brad Owens. Otherwise, it will go through the system, and our other associate director, Stacy, will assign that request for consulting to whoever she thinks it would logically go to as a consultant based on geographics or the service that they need, et cetera. And that may not come to me. So if they wanted to meet with me, they would need to state that. But if they just want some consulting assistance, they just go on our website and do that request for consulting. And of course, you can reach out directly to me at that email address.
That's amazing. And just to repeat, and don't want to beat a dead horse, but for free government consulting from experts that have been in this industry. So that's wonderful. Really appreciate you being here today, Brad.
Glad to be here. Glad to be representing the Florida Small Business Development Center at USF. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Tommy, and I look forward to it going forward.
Yep, I look forward to a long-lasting relationship. Thank you so much for joining us at Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, TomCo Solutions, the construction industry, or real estate investing in Tampa, please be in touch or visit TomCoSolutions.com. You can also find out a little bit more about me personally at TommyWhitehead.com. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Brad's there as well. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everybody. Hi, everybody. Tommy Whitehead here. Have you heard about my book, Building Success, A Toolbox to Coming Out on Top? It's already been on the Amazon best-selling list. So scan that QR code on your screen or go to Amazon or any major retailer to get your copy today. I can't wait to hear what you think. So leave a comment below or leave a review with your thoughts.